In a small neighborhood, where everyone knew everybody, lived two men who couldn't have been more different. On one side of the street stood Mr. Harold Johnson, a man of status, wealth, and arrogance. He was loud, boastful, and never missed a chance to remind folks that he had made it while others were still struggling. Harold owned 3 successful businesses and had the kind of house that made people stop and stare. On the other side, lived Eli Turner. Eli was quiet. A widower. A man who had lost almost everything: his wife, his steady job at the factory, even his health wasn't the best. People saw him sitting on his porch most days, working odd jobs here and there, and they whispered, "That man is finished. Useless." And nobody believed that more than Harold Johnson. One afternoon, the two men crossed paths. Harold was showing off his brand new car to a group of neighbors when Eli happened to walk by. Eli smiled and nodded in greeting, but Harold, he didn't return the kindness. Instead, he sneered and said loud enough for everyone to hear, "Some folks just waste oxygen. Ain't nothing sadder than a man who got no purpose. Useless." The neighbors laughed awkwardly, some even turning away. And Eli, he froze, that word cutting deep into his soul. Useless. The one thing he already feared he was becoming. He clenched his hands but said nothing. Just lowered his head and kept walking. But what nobody knew was that same night, destiny was about to shift. It was past midnight when the storm rolled in. The rain came heavy, beating against the roofs, lightning flashing like a warning in the sky. Most of the neighborhood was asleep. But Eli couldn't rest. He sat on his porch, listening to the storm, his old army flashlight beside him, one of the few things he still cherished from his younger days serving overseas. Suddenly, through the crackling thunder, he heard something. A sharp sound, like wood splintering, then a crash. It came from Harold Johnson's mansion. Eli grabbed his flashlight and limped toward the noise. As he got closer, he saw it. The massive oak tree in Harold's front yard had been struck by lightning. One of its branches had smashed through the roof, starting a fire. And inside? Harold's voice screamed out. "Help! Somebody help me!" Eli froze for just a moment. The same man who called him useless hours ago was now trapped. The fire spread quickly, smoke pouring through the windows. Eli could have walked away. Nobody would have blamed him. After all, wasn't Harold the one who mocked him? Belittled him? Made him the joke of the street? But Eli remembered something his late wife once told him. "Don't let other people's cruelty turn you cold. Your strength is in your kindness." So he ran. The front door was jammed. Eli used all his weight, ramming into it until it broke open. The heat hit him instantly, smoke burning his eyes. He heard Harold coughing upstairs, shouting for help. Eli covered his mouth with his shirt and pushed forward. Step by step, through the fire, he climbed those stairs, his old knees aching, his lungs screaming for air. Finally, he reached Harold's bedroom. The wealthy man was pinned beneath part of the fallen ceiling, unable to move. When Harold saw Eli, his eyes widened with shock. What are you doing here?" Eli didn't answer. He just lifted the beam with every ounce of strength he had, freeing Harold. Then, half dragging, half carrying him, Eli led him down the stairs, out the burning house, and into the stormy night. Moments later, the mansion collapsed in flames. Harold sat on the wet grass, trembling, staring at the ruins of all his riches. Beside him, the very man he had called useless, gasping for breath, covered in soot. For the first time in his life, Harold was speechless. The next morning, the whole neighborhood gathered. They couldn't believe what had happened. The arrogant man, who always looked down on everyone, had been saved by the one he mocked most. Harold stood before them, humbled, his voice shaking. "I called this man useless. I thought I was better than him. But last night, Eli Turner saved my life. The truth is, all my money, all my pride, it couldn't help me when it mattered most. But the man I judged, he became my hero." Eli didn't smile. He didn't gloat. He just looked Harold in the eye and said, "You see, worth isn't measured by what's in your pocket. It's measured by what's in your heart." The crowd was silent. Everyone felt the weight of those words. Even Harold, whose arrogance had once filled the street, now bowed his head in shame. And from that day forward, Harold changed. He treated his neighbors with respect, helped those in need, and whenever he introduced Eli to anyone, he said with pride, "This man right here, he saved me, not just from the fire, but from myself." Never underestimate the quiet ones. Never call someone useless just because they don't shine the way you do. Because sometimes, the very person you look down on might be the one holding the strength you'll need when your whole world burns down.